And we should be live. Yay. Let's see.
Mariam, what do you think? Shall I take some time to watch back these videos as well?
It
Or
depends. It
start
depends.
new project? So I quite don't know how to manage my time with
It
coding.
depends. So far, I want to get back to the other projects that we are building. However, this one allows us to be more efficient. So at the same time, it transforms an idea that doesn't exist into something that works, and it's good for you to
Yeah,
follow the process. So it's
that's
gonna
what
re-
I was
this is
asking
gonna
you
repeat.
how to do my time management in terms of coding the whole day, then what to do on the next day again coding. So you know what I'm trying to ask.
You can get back to those ones at any point later, because at some point when this will be working, it's going to work for old ones as well. It's just that for old ones, it's going to need somebody to watch them and add pointers when they watch them.
Okay.
Cool. So now we've got some things over here, and I decided to take a quick break because I want to somehow connect two functionalities together, and we need one of them to understand the other, or at least both of them at the same time. Yay! Hope the other guys are gonna get back soon. Now, while we wait for the other ones, I'm gonna go to Remix.
I am here, by the way.
And in the Remix, probably in the docs, I'm gonna search for form. Okay. This is more or less what we intend to do in a similar fashion. Now, form is a tag that allows us to have inside some elements that will be grouped together. In this scenario, there is an input type text and then a text area and a button. So all those three form elements, besides the label and anything else that could be there, might hold values that when the form is submitted, we can access. So now there are two functions that we are going to learn more about in, I would say, Remix. And those functions, one of them is going to be action and the other one is going to be loader. They have exactly those namings. We'll learn about what's common to them, what's different. However, this action function gets called by default whenever you submit a form that has a method of post, and you also need to pass an action to it. Or we could use a different form tag that generates this form and pass a method to it, and that's it. And the rest of it will be taken care of by Remix. However, this is our intent. We intend to have this kind of structure. We can have an input, a text area. We can have multiple inputs and no text area. It doesn't matter. We need a form with something inside it. It's important for this form that we'll be building for it to have at least one button of type submit. So we can make use of the functionality that's built inside the browser and we don't need to write a lot of code. So in order to write as less code as possible, this is what we want to build, something like this. So let's do that. Yay. Should we do a big form or a small form? Let's do a big form. That would be nice. So anyway, this main one over here and this div and this paragraphs will repeat for every element of our video list. So that entire structure gets repeated for that. That entire structure gets repeated for that, and so on. Yay. I'll convert either this div, either this main into a form, as long as it's wrapping some elements that will be inside. So I'm not going to create a form inside the button. I'm going to create a form that wraps buttons in something else. So I'm going to choose this main, convert it to a form. And then form at the end as well. So make sure that this tag and this tag match. I'm gonna save it. And those buttons, both of them are buttons, but none of them has a type submit. So I'm gonna create a third button, and this is gonna have a type of submit. Okay. Send the form data. Yay. So far I got a repetition of a structure like this that should create me multiple times a form with buttons inside them. Now if I'm to go back to my remix app and choose to somehow inspect one of those ones, I can see that I have a form, and that form only holds that row kind of, and then paragraph and buttons. And I have a send the form data button that also gets repeated. And if I press on it, I can see that my page refreshes. And I also get this question mark at the end. That's what happens. Let me know if you're in the same place.
Yes.
Okay, just a second. Let me clear up some of the stuff. Yay. Don't save. Done. Cleared. Cool. Now, the idea with this form is it's a native form. It's bare bone form. It's haven't been enhanced in any way. It's exactly what you get when you write it, because what we've done here. Now, this form can receive a method and a post to further add properties to it, just like this name over here, just like this on click, right? So I could do method, post, and if we have to change it now, something happens here. You made the post but did not provide. We can fix that in a moment. However, we can also do method get. And method get should not error us out. No. You made a post, leave me alone. If you get this one, go back to the address at the top and just refresh the page by pressing enter, and it should work. Now we are back to the form, which has a method of get. And let's understand the difference between them. I'm gonna somewhere, wherever, it doesn't matter, I'm gonna create an input of type text, just an input. And then I'm going to give it a name, and the name of this input can be anything. Okay. Now I can see an input being repeated in all those forms, button generating. And if I'm to type something inside this form, anything I can think of, and press enter, you'll notice that after this question mark, I have an anything word followed by an equal. Anything comes from the name anything. Now the value is what I've typed in here. Let's explore it a bit. I'm gonna generate 2 of them or 3 of them. Anything, something, and a cool name. Okay, now I have 3 inputs that repeat in every form, and I can type stuff into them. And as I'm typing stuff into them and I'm pressing enter, I can see that there's a question mark at the top. Then there is anything with the value of ASD, the value of the first one that is in almost something, it's something, yeah, because it's missing a here as well. And then the value of the second one, and then a cool name, and the value of the third one. So whenever you're submitting a form with the method get in HTML, this is gonna happen. Your data is gonna be output to the browser. Now, that's not a good or a bad thing, it's what happens, right? Now, the intention behind it, or at least the outcome probably, depends how you look at it, might decide what you want to do or not. Now, if you do want to share this link with somebody, you can share this link, and as you somebody pastes it or clicks on it, they go to exactly the same path with the same values, which can be used to pre-populate some data here or make some decisions. So that's the good part of it. The bad part of it is if this is a password, you don't want this to be shown here, right? Don't want sensitive data of any kind to be shown there. So that's the good thing. You can share things as long as the data inside is public and nobody cares about it. It's just functional. As long as the data is somehow private, if in any shape or way, you can still somehow play with the data, but this would not be a recommended way because people can just see it, and it's one of the security things that you want check mark. People shouldn't see your data whenever you're talking about it. Anyway, so with that said, now you know how get works, right? Now, if we are to change this to post, we need to create something, but not in this file, by the way. Now, this file exports YouTube logger, and YouTube logger is being used as a component somewhere. To find quickly a component wherever it's used, search the entire project for the lesser sign and paste the name of the component. You'll find a list of everywhere it has been used. This is how you make use of a component. So the lesser sign and the name of it should be found somewhere, right? All good? It's the same file as this one anyway. This is where you make use of it, right? Of this component. Yay. Now, if you take a closer look to this file, we can see that it's inside routes. Therefore, yes, we do have components. However, those components are going to become pages. So they have special things attached to them. We've discussed about export const links so far of a links function. We know about it, right?
Yes.
And then I've talked to you about the fact that we'll discover more of them, like meta and so on, which is a meta function, by the way, and it doesn't return an array, might be an object, we'll see.
We didn't talk about the meta function, just we will talk about it.
That's okay, we can find it somewhere here. Yay. Hopefully. I don't see meta here. Maybe I went again on the wrong thing. Me and searching and not looking properly for them. Come on, go up. Dun, dun, dun. Huh? Almost. Okay. So in the meta function, we can create an object and we can return keys for that object that are used in the meta tags that we used to generate before. Wow, job dev. I'm not sure if I have many meta tags, but we'll look into it in a second. So if we are to view page source, and we can see here a meta tag. I'm gonna zoom in.
What we use in HTML.
And now, if we are to look just a second into this example, not that one. Come on, where is it? This one. I lost it. It went away. Wow. Ah, now it's back. Somehow things are like frozen here. They don't want to move anything. Ah, no, it moves. Yay. So, meta charset UTF-8 is something we might want to have present in our HTML. Now, if you do charset, it makes this with UTF-8. Now, if you do description with this value, it's going to create a meta tag with the name description. So the name is the key here, like this one. And then the content is the value. And if you want to do viewport, you do viewport here, and then the value of it, and so on. So that's kind of how it works. It's like the array of styles that you're using with links. This time is an object with keys and values. So that's kind of how it works. Hey, let's get back to it. So we talked about the links function, and then I was mentioning that we have two more. One is action, and one is loader. Okay. Both of those ones are reserved names for Remix. So, and both of those ones are functions. And both of those ones receive the same arguments. It's just they almost do the same thing, and not the same thing. If I do const, everything is fine. However, whenever I do const, or let, or var, whatever, this action, it's only available in this file. So what Remix is expecting is to have access from outside the file, just like we're exporting default test YouTuber logger, the component that Remix will pick up and generate that route for us. Just as this, Remix will pick up those as long as you export them. So it's expected to export them. If you don't export them, it's not going to work, even if you have them. Yay. So now it starts to look more or less like links, right? Now, action is an action function typed action function, and loader is loader function. And links is links function, so you kind of see the pattern, right? If you want to type it later on, well, loader, okay, loader function. Maybe I don't recall it right now, but in the future you're gonna get used to them.
Yeah.
Okay, now wherever I imported some of those ones, I might need to do something. Let's see. So firstly, meta function, I don't really need it right now, and it's not used, and it's imported from the wrong place anyway. So I'm gonna remove that line. Come on, I want to remove a line. Okay. And those are all types, so there is no value that I want to make use of. It's just when I'm typing code, I want my code to be typed. That's it. When I stop typing code, this goes away. So now I got import type and all those ones. Now into action, I want to press enter and start typing some logic inside the function. The first one that I'm going to do is I'm going to return an empty object. Now I'm going to also comment this line, save it, and now we can see this define the loader route. That's a different error anyway. Just for the moment, I'm going to comment it out. Now, if I am to submit this form, I should get an error or not. Well, I don't get one because it's not method post. I'm going to try to generate an error here, and then I'm going to get back to explaining that. So to generate that error, I need to make this a post. Because whenever it's not get, and it's post or put or delete or anything else but get, action should capture it. Now, let's see. Yay, so I got an error. You've defined an action for the route, but the action did not return anything. Now I'll get back to the action, which is in test YouTuber logger for me. And this action returns nothing because I commented the code out. Now if I'm to return something, or at least an object, and I'm to refresh this page, now whenever I send the form, it no longer sends me an error. Although it does nothing, it no longer gives me an error. Now the difference between sending a form, and again our form is inside this component, so it's like copy pasting it here. So instead of YouTube logger, you'd have the entire thing with a form, right? So when you're sending a form to a page with method get, the loader is the one that's going to pick it up. Now, whenever you're sending anything else with a form to the page, the action is going to be the one that picks it up. That's the difference for forms. So action picks up anything that's not get. We'll look into what that means, picks up, in a second. Now I want to uncheck loader, uncomment loader, because loader should give me an error itself. The loader now gives me an error, which is the same error as for action. Our loader doesn't return anything. So that's what it's expecting, to return at least something. A quick way, just return an empty object, and now loader should no longer error. Cool. Now, I'm going to add some comments over here. Loader happens first before the test YouTuber component test YouTuber gets rendered. Now, even if you move this further down, it's not going to change that. So we are exporting that used later on let's say in a sequence that is baked into Remix. So the way it happens is loader, whatever happens in loader happens first. Let's say if we say here console log hello, well, hello will be seen first, and if you see, say, console log here of how are you, this will be seen second, no matter the order that you export them from. Now, action happens only when you submit a form. So action doesn't happen at first. This one happens, then this one happens, and you might have a form. Unless you interact with the form, and the form is valid and it gets submitted, action never happens unless you submit a form, right? So that's the difference. Now, when you submit an action, a form, if it's get, well, action still doesn't pick it up because it's get, loader will. Now, if it's post or anything else, you're going to capture it into action. Questions so far about, let's say, this logic, how it works, not what we're about to do with it? Well,
Just about posting it.
okay.
When we use it again, if you can see.
Now, because I don't want to take care of this action part over here right now, I don't want to care about it. Later on, maybe, not today. I'm going to make use of F with capital form, so this form with capital, and because that doesn't exist yet, I'm going to go to the end of it and import it from Remix Run React. So I should have form and link imported from Remix Run React at the top. Yeah, well, I don't even need it here, by the way, but if I want to submit it in this way that I'm about to, I need that form. However, this was an example because our form sits in YouTube Blogger, right? Or our forms. So I'm gonna go clean up my bit here and go to the correct file. The correct file is the one that has YouTube Blogger in it. This one has the form that repeats, so this one is to be capital form. And I just made sure that now it's also imported. I'm gonna save it. And I do have a method at post, which means now whatever data I'm capturing while I'm interacting with this form is gonna be somehow sent to that action. However, the action sits inside the page, not inside the component, right? Cool. So let's look at what happens inside this action. This action is gonna receive, we can receive multiple arguments. The first one, we are going to type as similar to action function, it's action args. That's then loader function, loader args. That's what you want to do. So action args. And you should see it here next to action function. It's just the type of it. For comparison, or at least learning by comparison, this is loader args. So now you can see some similarities among them. Now, most of the time, so we're going to make use of request as one of the properties of the first argument. It's an object with multiple properties on it. One of them would be request. Some other times would be content, some other times would be params, most of the times would be request. And most of the times after that params and rarely context. Yay. So request. Yay. That's it. We're going to talk about what request means. However, request is a way when you send data to the browser, you send that data with more or less some information inside it. One would be happening similar to an HTML page that we have the head. So inside the head, you don't render anything in HTML. It's just, let's say, content that identifies the page. And at some point you have body, wherever body starts. And as soon as body starts, that's your content, wherever body is here. That's that's where your head ends with information about the page, and now your content inside the body, this is what gets rendered in the page. And body at some point ends. The same happens more or less for a request. It has a header or headers, which is information about the request, and then the body of the request with the data. Now, in our scenario, request is the request that comes from the form, I would say. And we can capture somehow that. So firstly, we can do some more things. However, there is a way to write JavaScript with promises, then use then and so on. That's not the correct syntax, but you do use a then and then functions inside those ones, and use functions, you get access to the result. However, the result is present here. So now if you need it here, you might want another variable outside and somehow tell the inside to assign itself to the outside. Let's say outside equals result. This is how you might do something. So in this function that happens once you got the result from the promise as successful or failed, in this function, this is how you talk to outside. Now, this is how I can explain it at the moment for you. There's another way if we write async await for the same functionality. So in order to do that, you need to prepend this function with the word async. Okay, and if we are to write almost the same logic, then we will do await and call a function similar to this one, or do some event that is not happening right now. It starts now, it needs to wait until it gets the data from the server or wherever it gets the data from. Maybe there is a download involved or not. At a later point, 200 milliseconds, 5 minutes, at a later point, we got the data, we need to do something about it. So for this, we talk about asynchronous JavaScript and functions that get called later on once you get the data. Now, this function, this action function that we are writing, we declared it as async. So now inside it, we can write code using await and then something over here that happens later. And this is request and then form data. Request form data, the value of it is a promise. Now by writing async await, the wording like this, it allows us to capture the result. And now we directly have access to the result. We no longer need a function inside it that somehow says result is equal to data. We no longer need to do this, more or less. This syntax can go away. Now there are some caveats, some pros and cons. The other one has a success and let's say catch functionality implemented, which right now we don't have. And in order to get that back, we need to write some more code. So you don't really write less code. It's just a different.
So basically using one of each other, it depends on if you need a catch or not.
So in order to get that functionality back, I'm going to write a try catch block. This is like if else. It's called try catch. So I'm going to move this one over here. And then I can do here console log something went bad. Check out the
I never
messages.
understand this, because if you have an error, you're gonna get an error. So why you need an extra try and catch?
Well, the idea is that in JavaScript there are errors and there are wordings and there are logs and so on. When errors happen, the code breaks. And when the code breaks, you have to reload the code entirely. Mm-hmm. So now if there is an error coming out of here because you've wrapped it in a try catch, now JavaScript, you've instructed JavaScript, whenever an error happens over here, I want you to not do that error. I want you to console log. Mm-hmm. So now instead of breaking, you see a console log, the app continues to work. It's not broken. It's just in this state where you see this console log. It's not in this one. This code, may it be 100 lines or not, tried at some point. It might be that those 3 lines were okay. Might be that this one failed and produced an error. When it produced an error, it directly jumped in here. So unless everything is right here, this will happen. If everything is right here, this will never happen. And actually you get exactly this happening. Oh, it's just repeated, but I mimicked a few lines of code, right?
So you know where the problem comes from with this.
Yes. Cool. So now we got our result that, again, this is how you capture from the request that you made by submitting the button. Not this website. Come on. Okay. So when you submit this form and you've typed in some data, this is where you capture it. In this one. Okay, let's make it more simple. Now we've captured the data, but the data holds this, the buttons, or the entire form. What if we only want one of them? Maybe this or this. Let's look again back into our YouTube logger. Okay, so one is anything, one is something, and one is a cool name. I'm actually gonna copy paste those for quick reference. I'll paste them here and comment them out, or at least maybe not comment them out. I'm gonna select this part that repeats. Use multi-line edit to quickly delete most of them, and then convert them into a string. Or I don't need to convert them into a string yet, but anyway, I got to this part. Now I'm gonna comment 2 of them and just talk about one because the other ones are easy to reach, right? So I got something that has a name anything. This is the one. It's an input that has a name anything. Because the name is anything, I can go in here and say const anything, almost. Okay, so I need the string anything here. I don't need it necessarily here. I can go back to naming anything in a moment. So far I'm gonna do whatever. Right. But I still want to know that this is anything. Now in here I need this string. However, I can use result dot get probably item or just get. Let's try just get, and then pass anything as a string. And then I want to console log anything with the weird name. Okay, so I'm gonna wait until you're more or less into the same scenario and talk about it. So we got our result, then I'm using result get and the name of the, let's say, part of the form, item from the form that has been receiving a value, and I want to see what value it has. I'm then gonna capture it and assign it into anything I want. This time it has a weird name. And then I want to look inside this one. So let's see what happens now. I'm gonna type 123 and press submit, and then look inside the console. Okay, and let me know if you don't see it as well.
That is not submit, that is change. Use me. The submit one is the last button on the next line, I believe.
Okay, this one. Let me know if you see it. Well, I'm pressing it and I don't see it in the console, although I did set console log. Do you see it? Because I don't see it.
We didn't add it to the submit button.
Yeah, this is the one. I'm pressing it. It's not doing it. Now, let's think about what happens over here. This bit over here, I would call it front end. So whatever you can see here, you can also see in the browser as being that form, probably this one. See, with the div. Now, this part with the loader, although they work together with the component, and we'll discover how, those are backend out, call them. What did I do? Marian, just move my mouse again. Probably, I still don't find my mouse now. So where is it, Marian? I lost my mouse. Yeah, because now it was taken over by another one, a different mouse. So anyway, so those functions are happening on the backend, which means more or less they're hidden from this view that we are seeing. However, when we run yarn dev, we run our server as well as our project on the backend. So now if I'm looking on the backend, I can see here anything ty, and the value of it 123, 123. So whatever I type on the front end as ABC, this is it, and press on the form send data, I should see anything TY, TUT, and ABC. This is it. Right? So now my data has been captured inside this action. I can do something about it. Did you manage to see it in your console, in your terminal?
Yeah.
Hey. Now, if we are to get the next ones, which is something and a cool name, let's look at both. How we could do that. If we take something, then this one would be easy. Now, if we take the next one, a cool name, this one is almost easy. Because over here it's okay, over here it's not. So this needs to be camel cased. Yay. So now I'm gonna duplicate those ones. Hello.
Hello.
Did you manage to get a meeting with your client? One, two, three. ABC. Super nice. Yay. So now let's look back into our console over here. Once I've done some changes and I'm gonna go through them with you, but maybe if already arrived on the same. So now I can see anything and then followed by the three values that I typed in the form. So this is a way for me to capture whatever I write in the form inside an action data. It can also be
I
used
don't know why,
inside
but
the loader.
I'm not hearing you very well. I mean, it's low volume.
How about now? Is it better?
Yeah, a little bit better.
Okay. I thought it was already good. However, now I hope it's better. Cool.
I was listening to music in the background and you were the same volume, so and it was low.
So for the other guys and girls, did you manage to get some of your form working and see any of your values in the backend?
Yes.
Vivi?
I'm following you, don't worry. At the
Okay.
moment, I'm okay.
Cool. Now, we could continue to do the same for all the values in a form. However, this starts to look like this, right? Wouldn't we be there an easier way to do it? And let's rewrite this one. So I'm gonna select this expression and wrap it in round parentheses and add before it object dot from entries. So you can read more about entries, object entries, and object from entries on the web and see some examples. What this object from entry does, it takes a collection of properties that have probably arrays with values inside them, just like your state, similar to your state. And then it converts them as the first value of being the key and the second value of being the value into an object. That's what this one does for this particular type of data. So it converts it into from a multidimensional array probably into an object. So now I'm gonna comment the one on top. I'm gonna comment every single one following. And now I got this result back. If I am to look at this result as console log result, this one should be looking more like an object now. As object. So now I saved this. I'm gonna open my console, scroll all the way to the bottom, go back to my form, type something in it, and then press either enter to submit it or this button. I'm gonna press enter. Now, well, it's not an error. I can see an error. Well, there's an error later on. Probably I haven't commented out everything. Yeah, so I forgot this. Okay. Now, because I forgot that, by the way, and because I commented out wherever I was creating this initial constant, this constant never gets created. Now console doesn't see it and complains about me trying to do stuff that doesn't work. So either I comment it or remove it because it's not needed right now. I just wanted to get to a different point and explain to you how I get it. So now anyway, back to it. Type something in here now. 1, 2, 3. Press enter. Scroll all the way to the bottom, make this taller, and we can see the result as an object. And now we have a key called anything with the value type space, because that's what I typed there, and then the key something with the value something space, because that's what I typed there, and the key a cool name, and the value in here now 1, 2, 3. So what does matter to us, it's always this part, not the other one. This is the part that matters to us always. This one doesn't matter. It matters when we write code, but when following data, this is the data that we need to follow. This is just syntax that we can make use. Now, you can see that you can write it in so many ways and still get the same result. In the end, with this, or with object from entries, we get access to this, and this is what we need to follow. The rest of it, we'll understand it in time and so on. This is the part that takes much time for most developers to understand, and if you focus on it from the first, then you'll not have problems in the future. Cool. So now we know that we can type things in the front end and get access to it in the back end. Welcome back, Stefan.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Now the rest of it is something that we can imagine we don't have to go through again, because we got this result as an object that gives us access to the value of anything, something, a cool name, and so on. Now, if I just want anything, I can do result.anything. And now, if I only type this, well, I can type all of them. I'm just printing one of them. So in here, I should only see, hey, let me make it bigger. What? Internal. Hey. So I should only see one, not the entire object. This is how I can make use of any of the namings that I previously typed. Let's look at them and see if we have questions. So initially we started with a form that we can find in YouTube Logger, and this form is going to have it's going to be submitted with the method post, and then the action is going to capture everything inside request form data. Now we make use of a wait, so we don't have to deal with promises and thens. And by using a wait, we directly have access to the value that gets returned from this promise. and then we pass that value to object from entries. Object from entries picks that data and transforms it into an object because we don't want to write the other stuff, right? Now results.anything and this one over here are the ones that kind of come together. The form goes to action with everything. Now anything that has a name, like something like a cool name, will be present as properties of result. Result.anything, result.something, result of cool name. We'll see, we'll look into how we can access that one as well. Probably with some sort of way. I need to see if it keeps a cool name the same or if it changes a cool name to capital C, capital N if it camel cases it. Sometimes JavaScript or some functions of JavaScript might do that, so expect sometimes to be weird. Now I want to look at result again to see what's the last one. So the last one looks like a cool name, so it's not camel cased. Yay. Cool. Now what do we do with this? Const values. Value list is an object that has, well, I'll just copy value list from here and replace the result. That's it. I want to say const value list is that. Hey. Now there are two ways to deal with this to continue, I would say. Once you get some data, either from an input that you want to create something, you need to make it persistent in a way or another. To make it persistent, you need to save it to a file or a database. So then later on when you come back, based on some logic, you can gain access to the same data that you worked with. Now, if we are to continue this route, this way, because routes is the name for a folder and I don't want to confuse them. So this way, we want to save probably to a database like Firebase. Okay. Now, if we want to save it to a database like the local storage from the browser, any browser will have a local storage, a session storage, and other ones like IndexedDB, WebSQL, and you can hook into any of those ones. Now, the most easy ones to deal with are local storage and session storage. Local storage differs from session storage is that once you close the browser entirely and you open it back, you still got access to your data. Session storage, you get access to your data as long as you don't close entirely your browser. So even if you close this window and open it back and go back to this path, you still got access to the data. It's just when you close the browser entirely, session storage gets cleared. And you need to expect that. Maybe that's the way you want things to behave. If otherwise, you want local storage even then persistent permanently. Now, let's see. Firstly, we got access to our data in the action. We could somehow connect to Firebase and tell Firebase, save me this data because I already have it. Or we could look into YouTube Logger for this form over here. And I'm not sure if it will work. I'm going to try something anyway. On submit test something. This does not exist as something. I'm gonna go at the top of return and do const test something. You don't need to follow this after me right now. Just wanna see if this works in terms of stopping it from submitting. This function is gonna receive an event and I want to do event prevent default and console log. I stopped. Yay. Now let's see. I'm gonna go back to the browser, try to submit something, see if I see it on the back end or on the front end. On the front end it was nothing. On the back end,
It's two different browsers, so you can't see. You won't be.
yeah, I can see it changed to get. That's why I didn't pick it up. It changed to get, see? So if I added that thing to it, see this one, not in this, yeah, on submit here. So maybe that's not how it works. Anyway, I can make a different form if I want to. Form test. I'm gonna remove this action on submit, and I'm gonna pass the same one, test something. Let's see. In here I need an input, type button, test, that's it. Okay, I have a button test. I still don't see it. Why not? I don't really know right now. It's on submit. Maybe it's not on submit, maybe it's handle submit. It should be on submit. Yeah, that's the one. And test something doesn't do anything.
I think it's better to put the on submit on the button.
I don't want the submit on the button. I don't want the submit on the form because I want to capture the form submit. I wanted to show the difference when I capture it on the front end without using useFetcher, and when I capture it on the back end just with normal forms. This should work, although it doesn't. It's because I don't see any console log here and neither an error. It's like it's not submitting, and this button is not, because this button, Marian, that's why. Submit. Yay, now it should work. And I can see I stopped. Okay, yay. Now, what's the difference between them? So, if I am to replicate the same inputs at the top and look at one form that gets submitted with method post, and then it goes all the way up into action, and that's where you capture data. And this is a different form, same as the other one. It's just that this form now, whenever it's submitted, it calls this function. This function tells the form to no longer continue submitting the data as it knows how to. So basically it just stops here, the submitting of the form. However, the function has been called with this event. Therefore, you could do something whenever it's called, right? So we'll look into it in a second, what we could do. Now, the difference is that whenever you're submitting the form and you're capturing it in here, in this test something, by submitting it like this, you are going to capture it, what we call it, in the component itself, which happens on the front end. Therefore, if it's on the front end, you do have access to this database in a second. So to local storage. Now, if you submit your form and the data goes on the back end, this is the back end here. Well, not here, whatever. Now, give me a second. Okay, routes, listen, test YouTube logger. And whenever you're submitting on the back end, you still have the same data. However, back end, again, we've seen that happens in Node.js inside this process over here. This is not our browser, right? It's Node.js. So if you call a function from inside the browser, being in a totally different place, it's not gonna work, right? Let's keep that in mind, and now let's save in both of them and see what the difference would be. One is quite easy. We'll save to the browser, and the other one, we might need to create a configuration for Firebase. It's easy, I would say, to create that. We just need to do it at some point. So let's start with the easy one. In order to save our data on the front end, we know that we have it over here in test something, we captured the fact that the form has been submitted. Now, how do we get those ones to access to the values of those ones? Well, we could do a combination of use state. We could do that, or we could do a use ref. So let's do a use ref for one of the elements, and let's pick one of them. For example, anything. Let's do const anything ref as reference, just ref as short, is use ref. And this time you're gonna pass to use ref a null to start with, and later on we might talk about why when we attach them to certain elements, we might start with null for typing purposes anyway. So anything ref now is just like use me, something that we can make use of, and we're going to go down to this input and add another attribute just like type and name ref. And this attribute is going to have the value as anything ref, the one that we just created earlier over here. That's it. Now, the way useRef works is that anything you pass to it over here is not going to be available in anything ref. Anything ref is going to be an object. That object is going to contain a property current, and the value of that property current is going to be whatever you pass in here. So anything ref is not going to be the value itself, it's anything ref dot current will be that value. So let's keep that in mind and try to play with this test something. On a console log anything ref firstly. I want to confirm it's an object. So as soon as I go to the browser and I find myself what's the name of it? I don't have any name because I no longer have it. I need to submit. Input, submit. When I copy paste it from one side to another, I copy paste it over the submit button and it's no longer present. Test. Yay. So now I can see test back. So as I submit this form, I want to look at anything ref, and as I submit it in the console, I can see curly braces current, and then if I look at the property current, I can see input. And if I am to hover over this input, somehow it looks like it's this one. Not sure why, but anyway.
So with
Now,
this use, you can see the browser.
come again, sorry?
So with this use ref, we can see it in the browser, basically our data.
Yeah, we can. And then I think I know why it goes back to, it goes all the way to that one. I think I know why. Because this input gets repeated multiple times, and then it has the same reference. For the moment, I'm gonna just comment most of the properties but one, so it only gets repeated once. Hopefully, I can see this thing with test. Yeah. Now, if I'm to type something in here and press test, I will see again current input. I will see the input, and if I look into the input, whatever target or input value, let's see if we have value. Wow, there are so many properties. Validity, that's interesting. There's no value. Let's just try it anyway, maybe it's like hidden. So, anything, just I can click me, anything ref, where do I use it? Here. So anything ref dot current shouldn't show me the object anymore, should show me directly the input, because I said dot current, and then dot value. Shouldn't show me anything because I haven't typed anything. But if I do type something, I should see that. So that's a way to access a property. And that regarding forms, there are two paradigms or ways of speaking about them in React. One is controlled forms, and one is not controlled forms or uncontrolled forms. This way would be the uncontrolled forms, by the way.
And in the work, which one you use?
We'll see how we make use of controlled forms and then see what the difference is. Now, there is nothing bad about one or the other. This is how you make use of the uncontrolled ones. The idea of uncontrolled forms is that as you type something in it, your component doesn't refresh because useref does not produce a change. Now, there are some add-ons that you might need to install, like extensions in Chrome, but if we go on, not even sure if it's here, it should be here anyway. I don't see it somehow. Slid, Quill, Merlin, manage my extensions. I don't have a React. Come on, Marianne. Yeah, I do have it. It was just disabled. Okay, so close, open it again. Really? Come on. And now let's look for, I still don't see it anyway. DevTools ChatGPT, does this exist? I have an extension about ChatGPT, maybe that's why. I don't know what DevTools does for that anyway. I'm getting sidestepped.
I think you need to go at the top of the browser where the React DevTools is, and I think you need to, press on it. The React DevTools. That's Redux.
That's Redux.
Yeah,
my bad. Sorry. So that's Redux, and what is
on
it?
Yeah.
Maybe if I remove it and add it again.
Oh,
Yeah, I can see it at least here, but it's not.
Is it?
Okay, because it doesn't see React.
Yeah, that's right. Because it doesn't see React. That's what I was saying.
Anyway. So if we want to do for something the same way, we could go over here, create another useref. And because I can't tell you much about that, I can at least draw something on the screen and tell you that would happen when you use create React app and Vite. You'd see that because this gets rendered on the back end. It might affect the fact that you can't see it's a React app. Anyway, so something or just some. Then I pick some ref. I give it here. And this is similar to, if you have seen so far, document get element by ID. This is what this one does. It's doing under the hood. It's getting this element and passing it to this one as the value of the current property. Now, again, what I wanted to show you is to enable some redrawing here, and that one shows you whenever React redraws elements inside the view. And basically, as we were making changes, if the elements get redrawn, you'll see some highlighting like happening over here of the elements that get redrawn, and some might not be highlighted, which means they don't get redrawn, and some might get highlighted, and it indicates to you that a redraw happens there. Now, sometimes you want to make it happen, and sometimes you're like, why are you redrawing it? So anyway, that's what it was all about. Now, by using useref, you should not see any redraws, because you state when it sees a change, it asks the component to re-render. Useref doesn't do that. It just makes the change to the variable, like we talked about it earlier. However, this part does not get re-rendered. So it doesn't affect in any way the performance because nothing changes in this part, right? And we still get access to it like that. Hey, I sense there is a question.
Yeah, quick question. So why do we initiate the useref with null? specifically.
For typing purposes, if you remove null and then you're passing useref to this, it's gonna complain because input does not know how to treat undefined.
So if you put nothing, it's undefined, and if you put null, you put it on purpose null, so then it knows it's null. Yeah, I get the point. Yeah.
Okay, good question. So now if we are to do the same for the third one and so on, as many elements as you need, we can do this, right? Now, because I have access to those two values, I can do something about them. For example, I can do const my collection, my list is an array probably, and the first value would be that one, and the second one would be this one. Or I could do an object, and if I do an object, then I need keys for it. I could do almost the same thing. It's just that in front of them I need keys. And this would be anything, and this would be something. So now I got an object with the values that I received from the form as I'm typing and submitting the form. And what I could quickly do is to say probably window, it's not document, let's see, let's try another. Window, okay, and then it's local storage. And then after local storage, it's a dot, and you can see more of them. Set item and get item is what we use most of the time. Sometimes they move item, depends, or clear or whatever. However, set item, it's a function. Get item is a function. Get item expects one argument. Set item, two of them. Get item will take one argument, which is the key that you want to get the value of. Set item takes two. One is the key that you want to set the value of, and the second is the value of that key. So, set item, and we need two of them. We can even see a key and the value. And both of them are expected to be strings. So don't send, let's say, values that are arrays. Don't send values that are numbers. It needs to be a string. We'll get into that, but this is what's expected, right? So let's give it a name for the key and a value. And the value would be my list. Now my list is an object. And let's see what happens when you send an object and not a string. Okay, I'm saving. I'm going to the form, filling in some values. I'm only capturing the first two, so it doesn't matter if I send the third. And now I'm saving it. If nothing went wrong and everything went right, I shouldn't see any errors. And if I go into the application in local storage, I should see a name as key, and then something that looks right but wrong, because we did send an object, but I can't really see the contents of the object. What happens under the hood probably is it might take an object, and I'm not even sure if this is how you do it. I'm gonna try until I get it. Yeah, probably converts an object to its string value, not to whatever an object means, and that's what we see. Now, in order to get around that, let's take the same object. Let's give it a name, Marian, and an age of 40. And if we convert it to string, you see that this information does not get somehow presented in here. However, if we are to take the same object and call json.stringify on it, it's gonna give us something. That looks kind of better. Looks like our object, almost. However, it's a string. So we're gonna make use of JSON stringify for this particular
So
scenario.
basically, you need to call JSON.stringify on whatever
Anything
constant
you
or
pass
function.
Anything.
Anything. Yeah. So basically, in the when you call stringify, you just put that there.
Exactly. Now, if I take this exactly that thing, and I say const blah equals that thing, and now I say blah dot name, doesn't work because it's a string now.
Because it's a string.
Yeah. Now if I say const blah 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 equals JSON dot parse is the opposite of the other one, the string and call base, but blah 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 blah. Not cont is not good. You need const, Marian. Oh, wow, today, yay. Okay, so now if I say blah 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 dot name, it gives me Marian. So if you take an entity, a value of any shape or kind, and you pass JSON stringify, or you pass to JSON stringify, some of them might be circular data and might error out anyway or give you errors, but if you pass normal data to it, it's going to convert it to a string, and then from a string, the same data, you get it back with JSON parse. You might use it in different scenarios. This is one of them. Cool, so now we know that my list is an object and we want to pass that object to JSON.stringify. And then whenever we set it in local storage, let's see what we get. I'm gonna go back, type something in here, press test, and go back to application, a name, and we can see a name holding the entire string. That looks exactly like our object. We could even copy paste it in JavaScript and it will work. It's just that we don't need it at the moment to be copy pasted. We just need it here to be saved. Now we know how to save to here, to this database. If we are to read from the database, we need to do console log, for example, and window local storage get item. We are going to call it just like before. However, this time we just need to pass it the key because get item doesn't need a value to read the value. It needs the key to read the value, right? And this will give us our string. That's not an object. Okay. Okay. This is the string that looks like the object, right? And if we are to wrap this in a JSON parse, go back here, type something, test. Now you can see that basically we send the object to local storage as a string. We convert it into a string. It went into local storage. Then we got it back from local storage as a string and then converted it back into an object.
Yeah.
Now the difference between them is if I type here, hey, this is mega cool, right? And I press test, I can see mega cool in so many shapes as it goes and comes back. And now if I'm to refresh the page and go to application, I can still see, hey, this is mega cool. So it's persistent. We can act as a database. Now you can build many games and many things around the fact that you can quickly use this as a database. However, if we are to somehow want this same functionality on a different browser, it does work in a different browser. However, in a different browser, it will be a different database. So the databases wouldn't be sharing the same data. It will be newly created every time. So this might be what we want or not. It depends. Shall we continue this and add functionality to it, then switch to Firebase probably in the future?
We can. I just need to go in 45 minutes now. That's fine.
Anyway, if we are to continue, the rest of it will be recorded and you can follow it up. This is not the part that really matters with local storage. However, it's good to know about it for interviews and at least for you to play with it a bit.
Yeah.
The reason why it's not that important is that it's mostly used for simple tickets, like you want to track some behavior and so on, or you want the user to remember some setting being blue or red. It's not like the website cannot work with all this. That's why it's overlooked and not that important. However, saving to a database of any kind, that's what most people do all the time. So we're going to focus more on the, whatever that one is. Yeah. The action.
Okay. Right. Right. So I have one question.
Yeah.
So I know the sessions are recorded. Where did you post them, or when are you going to post them? Or
Well,
I mean, I mean, the question is, where are they if they are online or not? That's it.
I wanted to ask the same.
yeah, YouTube.
Yeah. So if they're there, because I didn't see them on All Job.
Me neither.
Let's see.
If you posted them, it might be that we don't.
Okay, videos and live. Live here.
Wait a second. Bear with me a second. I just want to double check something really quick.
And by the way, if they don't go away, as soon as we have this finished, we should see them in our list.
Okay, so I can see your live. Okay, so I can see your live.
I can hear you twice.
Yeah, exactly. Right, wait a second. Oh, okay. So this morning, this part 3 wasn't there. So I think you uploaded them today. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. It's how it works. Okay, it's perfect. Right. Second thing I wanted to ask is, can you please, at this point, since we all followed really close until now, can you do a commit with everything?
Definitely.
Because I didn't follow the coding part on my end just because
That's
it was more interesting and
I'm
paying
gonna do
attention
one
on
now.
what was happening.
I'm on dev at the moment, and everyone should be on dev, right?
Yeah, make your own.
Yeah.
Make your dev.
So before I commit, because so far Git doesn't know about those changes, right? Git status. Okay. I haven't added them. Right? So as long as I didn't add them, I'm still free to play around with dev, because dev doesn't know about those yet, right? So git checkout -b should be fit start YouTube logger. Yay. Now my branch is fit start YouTube logger. I'm gonna commit everything fit start YouTube logger with local storage and to do Firebase. Once we've got those two sorted, it will be more or less on auto repeat the next things and focus more on components and styling. But we need to somehow save the data wherever you want. It could be one or the other or any other storage device.
Yeah, I believe Firebase is a really good. I mean, a lot of people I saw that they're using it, so it's a good practice and or well known out there. So it's very good to know how to set it up, and then you don't need to set it up anywhere. You just need to use it and know how to.
Yeah, and what's the target for today to get to the Firebase? Because I can wait until that if it's in an hour.
Okay. Do you want me to do Firebase quite quickly right now, or?
It's up to you how you would like to continue. I don't know what the plan.
So for Firebase, you need a Gmail account at least. Okay, and let's do Firebase. At least we can do this pretty quickly, the connection to it. Okay, so just look for Firebase, google.com or something that says console Firebase. Should be what we are looking for. Now for Firebase, you should see your users here, more or less at the top. and you want to click on go to console. Now this is not the user that I want to be on, so I'm gonna switch my browser. I want to be on a different user, this one. So I'm gonna search for Firebase because this is my personal, so Firebase, whatever. Yay. So now I am on the same place. It's just that I'm a different user. When I press go to console, I can see one or more projects over here. I can also see that I have 4 of them, and that's not good. So one needs to go at some point, because I can only have 5 on a personal unless I add more. Anyway, let's add one now. I still have place for one of them, and give it a name. This would be YouTube Logger, just like that. Press continue. This one with Google Analytics, I usually leave it on for projects that I want to have them somehow in the future connected to the analytics part and see tracking events. For the moment, we can turn it off, but don't worry if it's on. It's not a big thing. I'm going to turn it off so I don't have to worry about it. So far, I gave the project a name and I turned that thing off, nothing big about it. And we need to wait until Firebase finishes, and then there are 3 more steps to do. One involves coding, and the other one involves more or less clicking around. I believe this part is quite easy for you, Agnes, right? To get to this point. But keep in mind, you can only have up to 5 on the personal one. On a business one, you can have more. And if you need more than 5, you create another Gmail account and now you have 10.
Okay.
Or you pay for them if you are looking for, become more proficient and more advanced, and probably whatever follows after.
Probably later.
Now, we could do Android, we could do iOS. We are web developers, so most of the times you'll be clicking on web, sometimes on different other ones, but I never use the other ones unless I wanted to test how it is. So I'm clicking on web. Now, usually I give it a similar name, like YouTube Logger. This should be the app connected to that project. So earlier it was more like a project. This is the, let's say, app for that, the database itself and many other things. So register. I don't need Firebase hosting because we are using Netlify to do most of the stuff that we need to. And at some point you might need this configuration. We can copy it right now, or we can just ignore it at the moment, because we're gonna learn how to deal with it quite quickly. One thing that we need to do is to run an install with npm or yarn to get this Firebase, let's say, library. This is something we need. So in the project itself, I'm gonna open the console. If I still have that thing open, I will press Ctrl+C to break it and the process, and I can type yarn add Firebase. That's it. Hit enter, nothing else. Let's get back to this setup. So again, we can copy this, and by the way, this is a public key, so it shouldn't be, wow, if somebody sees it, it's a public key. Everybody will see it because it's used on the front end, and you can access this key. It's downloadable. You can inspect it, so don't worry. Now, we'll get back to this key in a moment. I want to continue to console. And now I have 2 things to do. Authentication at some point, and the Firestore one. Firestore is going to be our database, and this is what we need for our purpose today. Authentication is something we could make use if we want to have login, logout. For the authentication, it's quite easy. Let's click on it. Let's see where it says get started. And all we need to do is start with the most easiest ones, email and password, and click enable on the top one. That's it, nothing else. See it. Save, you're done. So again, if I am to come again to this project, either I find authentication here or in some list like this, authentication. On it, I have settings or signing method here, a new provider, we've already done this one. If we want to add Google, that's how we start adding it. There are more stuff to be considered here. However, the easiest one is this one. You just add it by clicking enable, that's it. And now you can make use of Google's authentication if you need so. Now again, back to the project, you can either find Firestore database in this build, or you might find it directly here. Firestore is what we want. Just as for authentication, as I clicked once on the button to enable the authentication, now I need to create the very first time the database itself. Now, when you started the very first time, I actually kind of recommend you to leave it as is with this thing here, or not necessarily, no, the one in test mode, I thought it starts in test mode anyway. So click start in test mode and leave it like that as we start to develop our first things with Firebase. As we know more about it, we'll be switching to production as it's what we want in the future. When we switch to production, we also want to update our rules to not be anybody can write as long as it's today and whatever, right? As long as it rains. So anybody who is authenticated, she should do something or not. Not right now, everybody can do anything. And since we are developing, it doesn't really matter because it's not sensitive data. No. Start in test mode next. One thing you need to mind is this cannot be changed. So if you're playing and testing around, it doesn't really matter which one you choose. But if you want your data to be accessible very quickly, especially to people that use it on a daily basis, and you and your clients might be all living in Europe or like UK, then you want to change this to something that's very close to you. That would be your main server, I would say. That's it, we're done with this. Now we can further proceed to the final step. So we've done the first step, enable authentication. We've done the second step, enable create the database and set it on test mode, so we don't need to worry too much about it to start with. Now we can directly start adding data to the database like this. Ooh. And now we got a table SDSD. Inside that table we got a document. Ooh. And the document has a property name with the value 213. We could do this from over here. However, it's more useful to do it programmatically. And for this, we could always go to the settings at the top, and we might go to those settings multiple times. This time we want to go to general and scroll all the way down and either copy this bit over here or the entire thing or just the config, doesn't really matter. Now let's copy this thing entirely because we are running out of time. You can even click this button, and inside our project, inside the app folder, we see component and we see routes. I think it's a good idea to create a new folder named server, and inside the server create a new file, firebase.ts, and paste the contents that we copied inside that file. So far there is a server folder, brother with routes and component, and inside it we have a firebase.ts file. What I've done is to go on settings, be sure I'm on general, scroll all the way down and copy this entire bit. For yourself, it might have different values here. Yay. So now I got an app. And let's quickly explain what this one does. This one is importing a function used to later on initialize an entire application based on this config. Now this is our application, and we are going to use this application to access different things from Firebase. Different things meaning authentication, Firestore, storage, hosting, whatever we need. Machine learning, we can have a lot. Most of the time it's just Firestore database that we use. Quite often authentication, and rarely other ones, although I never said don't use anything, just use it if you need it. I don't have anything against them. It just didn't happen for me to use them. Now to use the database, I'll duplicate this one over here. Actually, let me try to see if it's from the same. No, it's not. It can't be. Okay, so I'll duplicate the line. Go and instead of Firebase, I'll say Firebase/Firestore. Let's work like that. Yeah, and then get Firestore from it. Just like initialize app on your line, imports from almost the same thing. The difference is app and Firestore, and now I'm grabbing get Firestore. And I need one more line, export const db equals, and then I call in the function get Firestore with app. That's all you need. Now this DB is exported, which means we can make use of it in any of our components. Now I'm gonna go to one of our components, probably YouTube Logger, to test it out. And anywhere in YouTube Logger, probably in click me, I'm gonna try to do something. Let's see if it works. So we might need collection const reference equals collection, and this collection needs to be imported from Firebase. Okay, now this collection might receive a table name probably, or Firestore. Maybe this is the DB. Okay, this is the DB. So let's type DB here. If you exported it, you should see it like this: server Firebase with tilde. Okay, and then give it another string, the path, a table or a list, whatever. This should be our reference. And now let's see how we do something about writing. So probably it's set doc, one of them. Set doc, this is the reference. Oh, that's very good. Ref. And what else? If I do a comma, data. Okay, so this is data. That's it. Okay. The data is test. Does it work? Okay. This one doesn't look. Type document. What's wrong? So this one doesn't work properly. Reference, document reference. This is a document reference. I need to look into setdoc how it works. Probably. Document reference. So that's after I get it. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna Google it anyway. Set doc Firebase. Let's see. Okay, so with set doc of doc, I need doc and db. And then db is just as I've done it. Okay, doc receives 3 arguments as far as I can see. Can you see here? There is doc receives 3 arguments because I see commas. One is db, the one we have. One is where we want to save it, and one is the ID. And then set doc takes this doc and then the data. That's what we need to do. And probably await it if we want to be async. Now let's get back to it. So I got my money not need that. Set doc takes 2 arguments, a doc, and doc needs to be imported just as a doc from here. Why it doesn't get it? Yeah, it does get it now. Okay. So document of DB, a table, and an ID, and then some data. Test some data. Okay. Let's see if this one works. We need to click on the event, and if it doesn't error, it might work. Dun, 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 dun. ASD test, and I didn't see any error. Now I'll go to the database on the other browser actually. So it's my database, not authentication of Firestore, and I don't see anything, which means it didn't work. Async and await. And let's capture this as const result. And console log it, console, come on. Leave me alone, console log result. Okay. By the way, did I click the correct form? Because this one should be picked up. Click me. I did not pick the correct form. Maybe that's why it's not working, right? Because I needed to do it in test something. That's where I get the two values, right? Or if I want to do it with Firebase in that way, I might need to do it on the back end, but let's do it on the front end. So test something is the one that deals with it. Let's move this logic, which is result is this. Let's move it outside, inside this one. Now let's click back on it and await now needs a sync here. Okay. I'm gonna also comment some of this stuff out so it's clearer. And we should see just result, probably if it works. Again. Bam, bam. Type something, I don't need to type it anyway, but now I've seen result with an undefined. That gives me something. Now, if I am to go to Query Builder and back to it, I can see a table with an ID and test some data. Hey, I made it work. I'm gonna continue with two more things and then switch back to you. So I didn't want it to actually write this some data. I might want to write my list, right? So I'll pick my list and move it on top of result. Okay, the idea is I want to have access to my list so I can send it here. Instead of this object, I want to send this object. And now I have an object with property test and some data. Now here I have an object with anything and something. So I'm gonna send my list. And this time, if I am to look inside the data, whenever I'm filling this form, 1, 2, 3, and ABC. I should see here 1, 2, 3, and ABC. So I'll stop. Let's see whoever had managed to get to some point from all of this.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm okay.
Okay.
I
Agnes?
need to.
I'm good.
Okay, Vivi?
Yeah, just sorry. I need to close because I have something to do. So thank you for tonight. I'm gonna be in the morning. Good morning to you.
Okay, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, bye. So Agnes, let's see, on your side, do you have any questions related to this database configuration, or did you actually manage to get it working?
Yeah, it managed to get working. It's more just to understanding the whole process what we went through.
So again, if I are to quickly explain that one, we created a database as a service. You might see this AAS a lot, or SAS. It's not our SaaS thing. It's similar, but
I
it's
can't
different
see
letter.
your screen.
Because it's not shared. Okay. So we are using Firebase as database as a service, and as I was saying, you might see this software as a service. This is what this means. And what that one also means with Firebase is that instead of actually satisfying our needs with a database by doing some processes ourselves, like either install some database on a virtual private server in some cloud device, install that database. Then after you install a database like MongoDB, MySQL, Cassandra, whichever databases you're installing, depending on what services you're using, if you want to do it yourself and not use Firebase, because if you're using Firebase or anything similar, then that's not the point of this chat. But if you're doing it yourself, then you need to figure out space for that database if you want to save something where that actually saves the data of the database. Then security, vulnerabilities, you need to also install it on probably some kind of machine, Linux or otherwise. Then after you install it, again, secure that machine as well, where you have the database, passwords, not passwords, different softwares. So you might be...
Just when I'm a freelancer, isn't it? Talking about just this way, isn't it?
You still need to do it. It's just that you have choices now. Before, I used to do it myself. I used to set up servers and so on, and it would take me probably a day or 2 weeks, depending on how big the project was. Now, I also had to take care in the future of if the database now grows big, does it run out of memory? Did it run out of space? So there was some management on top of it. And I haven't got to the part where we talk about login, which is even probably to our purpose a bigger subject. And you had to do all of this before you even had our hello world. Like right now, we looked inside the database, we could see that things are working, and it happened quite quickly. Database as a service takes that headache away. You do get it either for free or pay, depending on what tier of level you're looking at. However, it's not your problem if they have RAMs or not. You just want the database to work. I would say they're reliable 99.9999% of the time. They might go down sometimes. I don't really care that much about that aspect unless they go down for 2 days. If it's 5 minutes, my business should survive anything like that. If my business doesn't, I might not be in the wrong business, right? So we get all that, not necessarily for free, but for free headache. It's free for us developers normally, but when you go and use like hundreds of thousands of that database, it might cost you hundreds of thousands of reads and whatever. And it allows us to focus on the front end with just a few configurations, and then we can build interfaces that have databases behind without us having to write too much about it. So that's my take on Firebase. It's nice for front-end developers and for businesses who don't want to spend effort on setting up that manually.
I never got this far, so.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, how are you?
Not too bad. What about yourselves?
Not bad either. We just finished, or about to finish our third live, I would say, today, more or less.
Yeah.
Sounds nice.
We defined our YouTube logger. We wanted to create a list. We got to the part where we talked about how we can initialize basic forms. You can see them in front of you here. And what would be the difference when we submit a form normally and one with, let's say, the form from Remix. When we capture data in the front end and we can save it anywhere in the front end. For example, in our scenario, Marian, somehow you're controlling my mouse. Come on, Marian, stop. Marian. Marian, give me my mouse back. I know at the same time it's working with mine. So the point is stop for a second because I'm working here. Let's figure it out together. But you cannot play there while I work.
Okay, well, can I just have the mouse for a second so I can like change it back to the
Okay.
tab?
Cool.
Let me just
I'll fix it in a moment anyway. Cool. So, anyway.
What?
I'm here, I'm back.
Okay.
We're talking about those forms. So when we submitted data on the front end and on the back end, the same data with same forms but different scenarios. On the front end, we captured it and we saved it. Come on, let me show. Doesn't want
Locally, no?
those ones. In application on local storage.
Okay.
And we got here. Whatever we type arrives here. Ta-da-dam. Hey, Marian. See, it arrives there.
Okay.
And that is quite good. However, it doesn't give us too many options. It does give us the options to play with the data and have it persistent there. But if you switch from one browser to another, it's not synced.
Yeah, it's got it.
So it works for basic purposes, I would say, and basic tasks. Now the next one will be Firebase, which you're already accustomed to. We've created a database, click, click, click. With enable authentication with just for the email and password in the future. We don't need it now, but it's a good option to know. And we created a Firestore database with the test, let's say, setup. So it allows you to write anything, read anything. And then we got to the part where we copy that config. We exported the DB with that initialized initialized config, and we exported the DB. And all we've done with that DB is basically tell it the most simplest way to write something. Create me a document in this database with this table name, and this will be the ID of the document. And then this will be the data inside the document, and set doc is like save it. Hey, doesn't do much, but it shows us that we can connect to the database. The next thing would be to connect this, to clear this thing, because we are going to get rid of this. We keep just the one with Remix. And instead of saving it into, where was it? Here, into local storage, we are going to save it wherever
On
action
the
is.
Firebase.
Yeah. There must be an action somewhere. This one. Yeah. So we are now going to call that function in here that says save. This is the function that saves. We're going to call a different function inside this one, which will save to Firestore, like set doc, right?
Yeah. I was using add doc.
Yeah. Well, add doc, set doc. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do use add doc, let me know the syntax for it, because I haven't used it for a long time and I'm lazy to look for it.
Okay.
So
No, it's actually to add files to Firebase. It's quite easy to read them back. It's a bit more lines of code, but to write, delete, and there is like maybe 3 lines of code. But to take the data back and display it in the browser, it's like you use the effect, and it's maybe like 5 lines. I think I did it for my last project. Yeah. So it's nice to play with the Firebase. It's like a good idea to get up to like making APIs, like stuff like this. So it will be like a nice experience for Agnes.
let's see how much is this one doing. Almost 2 hours again. So quick break, and then Agnes, what are you doing? You mentioned that.
Yeah, I need to go actually around 12 o'clock, so I'm not sure now we're keeping the break pretty much. I can go.
Again, don't worry about this one. It's going to be recorded anyway, and it's not something you need to know, but it's good for you at some point to look at what can happen. Because, again, you don't need to know how to do things, but if you know that somebody could be capable, somebody could share that experience with you, and then you become capable. Now you know what to expect of what you can do and what you can't do, right?
Yeah. Are you going to continue? Or what's the plan?
I'm trying to focusing on this one. Not sure how much I can stay tonight, but I'm gonna try to focus on this one. Probably to do it as quickly as possible. If it takes, if it's ready yesterday, I'll be happy because then we can continue for our stuff.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, it's gonna be recorded. You can watch what. Thank you.
Well, catch you later then. I'm gonna stop also
yeah.
the live. Bye.
Bye bye.